Okay, nistu nitanako natko kitsima. This is Mike McDougall Price, Blackfoot name, double chaser, and you were watching Climate Action Figures.
Welcome to a brand new season of Climate Action Figures, Season 3. My name is John Whidden, and this week on the show, you get to meet Mike. We always start with a quick fix. If you're new to Climate Action Figures, this is a simple action that any of us can do to help the environment, sent in by an audience member. So get on it, pause the episode right now, and send yours in to climateactionfigures@gmail.com. or Instagram or Facebook or YouTube, however you want to get your quick fix to us. This week's quick fix comes from Janice from Calgary, who says, it's time for us to really consider our water use. If you collect water in basins when you shower, you can use the water for houseplants or outdoor trees. Old water in dog dishes can also serve to water vegetation. And when we shower, we can do military showers. They make you feel more invigorated. Well, welcome, Mike.
Yeah, thanks for having me. In response to the quick fix, I like the idea of traditional baths in accordance to our Blackfoot and Piikani cultures. Just finding a nice cold river or lake or stream and getting into those traditional baths can be not only wonderful in saving water initiatives, but also rejuvenating, invigorating, and replenishing our health, our human health, which we seem to be struggling a lot with in this modern age.
She said military showers. I can only assume that means cold. So you're not against the cold, but you're thinking to lie down in a natural water source is a better way to do it.
Oh, definitely. We actually do traditional baths here at the school. I'm just loading up a tub full of ice and putting some water in there and sitting in it for about 3 minutes. Getting in the health benefits that our ancestors once partook in.
Yeah, that would kill any swelling in your body, I'm sure. Now, Mike, you're a member of the Piikani Nation that's a part of the Blackfoot Confederacy, and you're also a science teacher at Piikani Nation Secondary School, correct?
Member of the nation itself, Piikani, and the Blackfoot Confederacy, yes. So not a science major by any means, just kind of got thrown into it in becoming a teacher. So here I am exploring and learning as I go the world of science and incorporating our Blackfoot traditional beliefs and practices with it.
Well, maybe that's the best way, is to learn with the students as you go, right?
Exactly. That's what I tell them. We're learning all this together.
And now, aside from classroom teaching, I've been told that you make great efforts to connect students to the Piikani language and culture. Tell us a little about that.
I mean, the language itself, I greet my students every day as I will with you, giving them an idea of who they are, kind of that identity. So I'll greet them with the day of the week and the month, gestures of gratitude for our mornings. We say, Idamak Skanatani, good morning.
Why is that connection to language so important to you?
Our people and our ancestral ways of knowing, carrying on the traditional values, the beliefs, the culture, the ceremony. It's very much important to me. As an upbringing, I was brought up into all of it, and maybe I didn't necessarily understand it. As we get older, we hopefully start to understand it a little bit. But being thrown into being a science teacher, it's brought me even closer to connections to the land, to the culture, to the environment, and of course the climate. I think that's kind of the defining subject.
Now, you also oversee a composting program and a, quote, Where Things Grow that has a Blackfoot name that I won't attempt, but you can tell us what that is, and several other very cool programs. Would you like to tell us about some of those?
It's a scientific, traditional, spiritual, and cross-curricular plant-based curriculum developed through this greenhouse that the school has had since I arrived. I don't know when it was built, but the title of the greenhouse is Idain Simau, Where Things Grow, this project of Where Things Grow. You mentioned the compost program. So having arrived at the school, this is now my third year teaching. We've got a wonderful food program for our students here. We've got a K-12 school, so we feed right up from kindergarten to grade 12. So we do bring a lot of food into the school, big food program, and there's a lot of waste. So I noticed the waste right away, and it didn't sit well with me. So I proposed that we get some sort of a greenhouse or a composting program to go along with the greenhouse. We have the capacity out here. We've got bits of land here, and so we brought in a good program with the Resilience Institute, and we have now some tumblers. We put all our food scraps in, and we compost, and we've since added some vermiculture and some worms to help aid in that decomposition process. We built our own little garden bed and in behind the greenhouse outdoors, and we put our compost back there already. And we're looking at planting some of our wonderful plants that we've been donated here, and we've actually started growing some of our own species of tobacco, in fact, and sweetgrass.
A lot of these things that you're growing have to do with traditional medicines or traditional ceremony.
Not specific to that. We're growing contemporary vegetables, tomatoes, and peppers we've got in the greenhouse there, and I've got some peas and whatnot. Just anything that will hopefully grow some food. That's the idea: is to grow our own food and bring it right back into our cafeteria and feed our students and our staff with our own food.
And you've gone on in this program to win a sustainability award. Would you like to share that?
Yeah, that's actually a good segue. I was just thinking of Brett Wayhill, our assistant principal, former science teacher. I kind of have filled in his shoes, so to speak, but he's done such amazing things for the program, for the community itself. The Sweetgrass specifically is one that, he's kind of him and his wife are doctors specifically in Sweetgrass now, looking at it under microscope and whatnot. And so he's kind of allowed me to, so to speak, take it on as my own baby, I guess, and just kind of keep the regenerative process going, just keep the plants kind of growing and thriving. And myself, I'm not part of any society. We speak to societies and ceremony in the community. My mother is part of the Black Horse Society. So this was kind of my way of getting back into my community and just, again, connecting myself to the plants, the medicines, but also getting more connected to the language and the culture myself, learning the language, getting back and learning some of the ceremonies. And we've since been honored with the transfer rights of this precious tobacco plant, the sacred honor for us to have the rights to it. We're supposed to learn the songs. We have to get to that point where we understand and know the songs before we can actually transfer these rights to other people in the community. But that's the idea, and hopefully we have this wonderful medicines to share down the road.
And I'll just use that to segue into the fact that we are going to speak with Brett and several of your students in the coming week.
Again, speaking to the Sustainability Award, so partnership again with the Resilience Institute as well as the Piikani Lands Department. They brought us a bunch of the sweetgrass to house in our greenhouse last fall. They did some documenting with myself and some of the students, and lo and behold, there's a documentary out you can find on YouTube. There's a couple actually articles you can find. One that speaks to the award itself. So this national award was given to us for it's a National Sustainability Award around our sweetgrass, and it's based around resilience against climate change and identifying whether or not sweetgrass can sequester carbon from the atmosphere, so to speak. And so I've been doing my research around carbon sequestration and this term called drawdown. Numerous documentaries out there that speak to this term of drawdown and carbon sequestration. Can our tobacco do the same thing, right? Sequester the carbon. So that's kind of the next phase. We've got mint out there and willows, and so the sky's the limit for us, and it's a huge honor.
It sounds like a fascinating program. Where do you see it going? What's the future of this program?
My vision, of course, is aligned with the elder who transferred the tobacco to me, in the sense that the tobacco being so heavily commercialized, one day I would like to see the nation go commercial free tobacco, so to speak, and have our own tobacco readily available. We'll never have to depend on commercial tobacco. Sweetgrass being the same, if we can reintroduce it back into our land down in the river bottom, because of the development 50 years ago with the Old Man River Dam, that's caused so much damage downstream. And now we're seeing a lot of those impacts. And it's hard to find sweetgrass. At one point, we believed that tobacco also grew here. And I've seen how resilient the plants are themselves. And, they just keep regenerating on their own. You just give them the right conditions and away they go. So hopefully we have tobacco readily available in our river bottoms and our marshy, our wetland areas. To bring the community together, I think is hopefully where I see the future of this going, extending to surrounding communities and sharing these wonderful medicines.
Clearly, tradition, language, your culture is very important to you. How about the importance of First Nation ways of seeing the world? As a settler, what can we learn from that?
As a science teacher too, we're told to, open our textbooks and look at the kind of the old paradigm of science. And science in its own, we know, it's durable but tentative. That's a tenet of our science. And I teach to the native tenets of science. Our esteemed elder from our blood reserve from Ghana, Dr. Leroy Littlebear. In fact, I've got some good teachings from him. I took a couple classes with him at the university. In fact, he's been teaching there for well over 50 years. My father actually took lessons from him. And he spoke to it, and he's got a really neat book, Indigenous Ways of Knowing. He's quoted in the book these tenets of science. And so the first one is based around space and land. Let's say plants, for example. Plants need space and they need land, in order to thrive and grow. And so does anything living above the land. And I'm watching a really cool TED Talk right now. Regenerative agriculture brings life back to the land. I've been doing a lot of research around this and just identifying that, life in general is so important on the land. Multi-species of plants and animals bring joy, bring life, bring happiness, instead of the quote the farmer has is, I would go out every day looking to kill something, whether it's a pest or a weed or, every day I'm looking to kill something, where with this better way of farming, regenerative agriculture, we have this notion to what more life can I bring? What diversity can I provide? What more diversity? And I've actually heard of new species of butterfly being discovered down in Waterton Lakes Park area.
If some of our audience members are interested in reading or seeing things further into that world, or just generally First Nation ways of experiencing and seeing the world, do you have recommendations in terms of books, TED Talks? I know for me, Robin Wall Kimmerer, Braiding Sweetgrass, was critical in terms of really opening my eyes to First Nations ways of seeing and comparing that to our modern scientific method. I should ask if you like that as a resource, but are there other ones as well that you would recommend?
There's a couple other ones. I look at a TED Talk called Everything is Connected, and it speaks to three different stories. One's a story of the mind, one's a story of the breath, and one's a story of the heart. The gentleman who presents the TED Talk, he really interconnects modern science with Indigenous science. And I use it all the time with my class in order to help bridge that gap. So in speaking to understanding, I just give you the one tenet of science, space and land. The next is constant flux and motion, and how the land is constantly moving. You could just think of like natural disasters, tectonic plate movements, supercontinents dividing. We know that climate change is inevitable, and First Nations, Indigenous people knew that all along. Climate change was inevitable. How could we adapt to it? We've always been able to adapt to it. How can we adapt to it in our next phase of climate change? How can we mitigate it, right? How can we kind of slow down the process? We talk about water quality and degradation. The second native tenet of science is how everything is animate and imbued with a spirit. We as, again, Blackfoot people, First Nations, we consider the rocks to hold our spirits of our ancestors. Our grandfathers are in the rocks, and we use the rocks in our ceremonies. We heat them up, and we heat our water, and we make sweat lodges. And another connection to the water, I use another reference there is Sacred Relationship. So Sacred Relationship is a website that I've used. It has a curriculum that teaches to our relationship with water, essentially. It follows a number of First Nations all over Alberta, including some Blackfoot elders, some late elders, Narcissus Blood's one from Ghana, and from right here from Piikani, Leopard. And there's really neat scenes. They're in Waterton Lakes. They're all off Belly River. They're offering tobacco. They're praying, and they speak to our connection to the water and our relationship to it. Why water is such an important resource to First Nations, and of course to everybody. So everything being animate with spirit, even the water. When we say it's an inorganic molecule, but it's very much organic to so many of us, to all of us, to life. And so we go into the fourth tenet of science is relationship. And of course, we all know what relationship means. It's relationship to the land, to each other, to ourselves. And of course, renewal being the fifth native tenet of science is that renewal, regeneration of the land. And I've seen it in so many of these documentaries that they're talking about regeneration and this regenerative agriculture. And again, so I connect that right away to our Indigenous ways of knowing. And I think if anyone wants to, that's a really good way of connecting themselves to Indigenous ways of knowing in regards to any aspect of their lives.
Well, thanks for sharing those, and we'll include links to any of the ones that are linked in our show notes today. Now, Mike, I sometimes wonder if First Nation ways of seeing the world is going to be the main way that we will need to get ourselves out of the climate mess we're in. Tell me if that's flawed thinking or unfair thinking or dangerous thinking or just settler thinking. What do you think about that?
I think it's definitely where a lot of people have already started moving themselves and their lives into that way of thinking. That all of our ancestors at one point were hunter-gatherers, according to what modern science says, and I believe it. It's there. It's in our DNA. We should be able to fall back to it one way or another. And so, yeah, I think that with the new technologies that I've been researching in regards to artificial intelligence, we think about, what do they call it? It's like a bioengineering, so to speak, where these big corporations in laboratories, they're playing God, so to speak. And I've heard now they're playing with microbiology, microorganisms in the soil. They're actually creating microorganisms in the soil. And what might that lead to in regards to, they're already genetically modifying the plants to be resistant to pests. And now I've heard the pests, the plants, the weeds themselves are becoming more and more resistant to those chemicals. I always say we got to go back to nature. It's good. These good things are coming to me. Another reference is this Carbon Cowboys you can find on YouTube. It's a docu-series, and it's all revolves around regenerative agriculture. So increasing the microbiome, not just in the soil, but in our bodies, our understanding that our microbiome, our gut biology, gut biome is like our second brain. And we hold more microbiology than any other organism on the planet. Therefore, we emit more energy. And it's this idea, and I use Zach Bush as another reference, Dr. Zach Bush, and he used to be a doctor guy, worked around people dying. And he's totally shifted his outlook on life. Now his work is this idea of that we are energy before we're even a cell. And that goes back to this Blackfoot, Indigenous, First Nations notion of spirituality. We hold the spirit, we hold the energy before we're even a cell, a physical, the matter, And so again, I go back to we need to be part of nature. And I do a lot of earthing and grounding work with my options class, any of my classes. I'm sitting on a grounding mat as we speak in my classroom. It's connected to my ground outlet. It's supposed to help me just get rid of toxins, just discharge some of that harmful energy that we're absorbing through these devices, through our lights, all the artificial stuff that's around us. Going back to nature, growing our own food, feeling better about it. I even do fasting with the kids. I talk to them about what's, the benefits of fasting, cleansing, well-being, bridging, we use that term two-eyed seeing. So it's taking Western ways of knowing and native ways of knowing and bridging them reason.
I get the sense that your students are lucky to have you as a teacher, and I want to be in your class too. But thank you very much for bringing some of your class to us today. I know the bell is going to go soon, so we have to let you go. But before we do, tell us about your climate action. What have you chosen today?
Well, geez, climate action ranges from my own composting at home, gardening, spreading the education and the knowledge that I'm learning. I think that's another big step in just, letting our voices be heard and hopefully getting the students to absorb some of that knowledge and to get them to think. That's kind of what we're supposed to do as teachers. We're supposed to get the kids to think, get them to think outside the box. Growing sweetgrass and tobacco as part of it, saving water or speaking to our precious resource of water. Even though we are in Canada and we have, the second largest freshwater supply, what have you, we still have so many First Nations here in Alberta, in Canada, that don't have clean drinking water. And so that one is another one that we try to educate the kids around, like how lucky are we that we live right here, right on the eastern slopes of the Rocky Mountains, and we've got all this fresh water coming our way. And, do we promote, the mining and things like that? Well, let's learn about that.
Many great climate actions for us today. Last question for you, Mike. What gives you hope?
Hope. Seeing these kids here every day, wanting to learn. Those that are here and they want to learn and they're ready to learn. I think that gives me the most hope. We're in the process of building a brand new school from kindergarten to grade 12. And that in its own will be a beacon of hope, so to speak, for the whole community. And so if we can provide ourselves with our own food and our own tobacco and our own medicines, just like, we were able to in the old days, I think that will go a long way for us as far as, being less dependent and being more of that sovereign nation that we claim to want to be or claim to be. Well, let's go do it. Let's be sovereign. Let's be independent and more sustainable in regards to climate initiatives and just better health in general.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today, Mike.
Yeah, it's been my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And thank you, dear listener or viewer. And if you have enjoyed what you've heard here today and you have gleaned some wisdom from it, please share with someone you think would enjoy hearing the podcast or seeing it on YouTube. We will be back again next week, same time, same place, to hear from one of Mike's students, another climate action figure. Until then,
we'll see you again in this life or the next. Go figures.
This has been Climate Action Figures. Our show is produced and hosted by John Whidden. Our creative consultant is Kayla McIntosh. Our theme song is Hawaii Vacation by Tovari. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Climate Action Figures. That's all one word. And if you have any other questions or comments that arose from this or any episode, feel free to reach out to us at climateactionfigures@gmail.com. And thank you for listening. We'll be back next week with another Climate Action Figure.